How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Teenage Exorcist from 1991. This is directed by Grant Austin Waldman and stars Brinke Stevens, who you guys may remember for Slumber Party Massacre. She was in a ton of other cult horror movies as well. Cool to see her here, and she actually wrote the script for this, so cool to see that credit as well. The movie also stars Deezen, who you guys may know for Polar Express. On this channel, we recently saw him in an episode of Monsters as well, so cool to see him pop up again here. And we also have a special appearance from Michael Berryman of The Hills Have Eyes fame. Now, even though the poster makes it look like he's the main bad guy, he's really more just a cameo. He's the nervous real estate agent who's trying to pawn off the haunted house onto Brinke Stevens without her knowing. Cool to see him acting against type. Fun to have a cameo here. Wish he was in the movie more. But yeah, boy, this this poster kind of goes nuts, huh? Michael Berryman with the little devil horns and this giant pentagram. It's hard to not notice this thing when you're flipping through the used movie store. Also, the title, Teenage Exorcist. Boy, there was a whole bunch of those teen movies. You know, I was a teenage werewolf, teen wolf, teenage this, teenage that. And here we get Teenage Exorcist. So I thought I should pick it up and see what it's about and maybe get a good laugh out of it. And I think that's what this is. This is a cheeseball comedy through and through. It is super campy and really, really cheesy, which I know is not going to be for everyone. But if you need a good laugh and you want a, like, at times almost Scooby-Doo-esque horror movie, this can be quite the pleasant afternoon. I know I got a few chuckles out of it. It was pretty silly, not the best thing ever, and definitely had problems. But if you want a cheesy, silly little horror comedy, definitely worth checking out. What's the movie about? No major spoilers, but basically Brinke Stevens moves into a haunted house. She starts to get scared after we get a few gags, and she calls her sister. The sister drags her husband down there to spend the night, and the husband's this rich guy. He's smoking a pipe and chewing up the scenery. He's very Thurston Howell III, and actually a really funny character. I'm glad that they had fun with this role and didn't just make him evil. He was cool to see him there kind of being aloof, you know? But anyway, also joining the cast is Brinke Stevens' sort of wannabe boyfriend. He's really trying hard with her and making absolutely no headway. And when he begins to think something's wrong, he's going to show up as well. And when they get there, it turns out Brinke Stevens is now possessed by some old spirit that was tied to the house's last owner. They call a priest, an Irish Catholic priest, and we're gonna get a few jokes out of him as well, especially when he decides to call in for backup, can't remember the right phone number, and accidentally calls the local pizza place, and through a hilarious misunderstanding, Deezen, the pizza boy, shows up. Now, with this movie's kind of humor, you have to get, you know, it is super cheesy. And yeah, like I said, at times it does feel like Scooby-Doo. Did you remember to lock her room? And then they both say, oh yeah, he did it. Wait, you didn't do it? And then they run upstairs and they peek their heads through the door and all their heads stack up on top of each other just like in Scooby-Doo. The classic hand reaching for her and she steps away at the last minute. Almost got her. Really, some very Scooby-Doo gags in here. And some just really silly humor, you know? There was, Brinke Stevens kind of turns into a seductress type character, and when she's tied up, she's like, I have an itch, scratch me, and he's like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Lower, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Such a cheesy joke, and then lines like, she looks like Reagan from The Exorcist. Ronald Reagan wasn't in The Exorcist. Just a little sample. That's the kind of humor we're dealing with. Everyone in the movie seems to be having a good time, and you can tell there was a bit of life and energy on set, and the characters are really chewing it up, and for the most part, we get good, dumb, cheesy jokes and puns pretty consistently throughout the whole movie. It's funny. I got a good laugh out of it. If you want this type of movie, this is good. But it's definitely not the best horror comedy ever, and definitely has a few significant faults with it. Like, here's a big flaw that actually really bugged me. The movie's called Teenage Exorcist. Who in this movie is the Teenage Exorcist? Like, the priest who would be the exorcist is an old man, so it's not him. Most of the other characters are grad students, probably not teens nor exorcists. The only character that could really pass off as being teenage is Eddie Deezen's character, and he's the pizza delivery boy, and really doesn't help out much as an exorcist. So yeah, there's young people, and there is an exorcism in this movie, but Teenage Exorcist? Well, okay, who in the movie Teenage Exorcist is the Teenage Exorcist? That's weird that I have that question. But then we also get a few other things, like the plot of this movie. It's like she gets possessed and the house's old owner shows up, but then he like turns into the devil, and there's this weird thing where I'm guessing what it's supposed to be is that's the spirit of the house's old owner, and he just looks monstrous, and he's not really a demon. And then you get what's possessing Brinke Stevens, and she'll say, oh, give me a break, I'm new at this. And at times it seems like the movie thinks that she's not possessed and just mind-controlled to turn evil, but I think it's supposed to be that she's possessed by the house's former owner's familiar. But again, like I said, the plot gets a little shaky, and I feel that we kind of jump into this too quick. I think Brinke Stevens gets possessed a little bit too quickly, and then in turn you do have a little bit of the runtime meandering towards the end. It was definitely stronger in the beginning, and then you get towards the end of the movie and it starts to become running back and forth up and down to the basement way too many times, and always using the same angle of the basement stairs in this weird gag that doesn't make sense, where they're like rats on the stairs and they're just ferrets for some reason. Okay, I don't quite get that. There's some weird editing things, like they're going to reference the bad guy reading the Necronomicon even though it's not in the shot at the moment, and then you're going to get like this out of place sequence where she's talking to one of the zombies, and that's clearly supposed to be later in the film. A few weird, low-budget stuff like that. And another thing, how big of fans are you guys of Eddie Deezen? Because his character, it is a little weird. You know, he's one of the bigger stars in this movie, but it takes a little while for him to get there. Like, it takes a while for them to call the pizza boy, to the point where I was like, is Eddie Deezen one of these other two guys, but he's not doing the voice? But no, he shows up, and when he shows up, you definitely know it's him. He's doing his thing, and he's being really loud and in your face. It really does feel like a character that's strangely absent for the first half of the movie, and then once he gets there, takes over the show. And Eddie Deezen, like I said, his humor is a little big and a little over the top and a little much. I didn't think he got too bad, but there are definitely going to be some people who it gets on their nerves a little bit, you know? But overall, I did think it was a funny, silly little movie. I did like the big haunted house they were filming in. I liked that it was pretty constant gags. And again, everyone here seemed to be having fun with it. It's just, again, not perfect. Not all the jokes land. It does go on a little bit too long. And there are definitely some pacing issues, but you know what? It's, at the end of the day, a fun little cheeseball comedy. Not the biggest thing ever, but if you want a fun little cheeseball comedy, this is definitely worth a watch. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom if you guys want to see more. You can click right there and see more. Anyway, Have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist here. Have a good day now.